Jim Farley has just sounded the alarm, warning that Trump's new tariffs are about to wreck the American automotive industry. Huge price hikes, job losses, and factories at risk. That's what Farley sees. A bold move to protect the American automotive industry that's actually a disaster in the making. Stay with us to see why Ford CEO exploded over Trump's tariffs and why the whole industry could end up in chaos. Farley. Tariffs will blow a hole in American auto industry. President Trump announced new tariffs on imports from Mexico and Canada with the idea to protect domestic industry and deal with illegal immigration. But in reality, things are not that simple, and this particular move is about to have much broader consequences, particularly in the industries that rely on cross-border supply chains, particularly the automotive sector. For American automakers, new tariffs on imports from Mexico and Canada inevitably lead to higher production costs. Not only that various models with American badges are produced in Canada and Mexico, but the thing is that even those models that are assembled in the US rely on parts manufactured in Mexico and Canada a lot. So automakers are about to face massive pressure, which could take years to shift production to America and require major investments. Ford is one of the American automakers that's going to be affected in particular. That's why it doesn't surprise that the Blue Oval officials had multiple meetings with White House representatives in the last few weeks, with the idea of finding a less radical and more sustainable solution. Ford CEO Jim Farley warned that Trump's tariffs could blow a hole in the U.S. auto manufacturing industry in the way that it could trigger major job losses. The problem lies in the fact that American automakers have been outsourcing their production to Canada and Mexico in particular for practical reasons, to cut production costs and make more profit. Now, things are about to turn upside down because with the new tariffs, all the low-cost production is gone, to the point that, let's say, Mexican-made products will become so much more expensive to build that companies like Ford will be left without any margins and even lose money with the current prices on the market. Steel and aluminum. Import tariffs on products from Canada and Mexico are just one part of the comprehensive strategy. At the same time, Trump also announced new 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum. And even though most of these metals are domestically sourced, there's a good portion coming from Canada. So, new tariffs will inevitably lead to higher production costs and will put additional pressure on the domestic industry. Farley stated that even though President Trump has talked about making the US auto industry stronger, about bringing more production to the US and more innovation in the US, which would undeniably be the most signature accomplishment, reality is that so far, we're seeing nothing more than a lot of costs and a lot of chaos. New tariffs on aluminum imports are between 10 and 25%, and they'll go into power on March 12. What's worth mentioning is that the new tariffs will apply to imports from all countries, which will eliminate previous exemptions and alternative agreements. The whole idea is to protect domestic industries by addressing unfair trade practices, not to mention stricter smelted and cast, ensuring that this process occurs within North America. In that way, the new administration plans to prevent tariff circumvention by countries like China and Russia. The problem with American automakers is that even in the case of cars that are assembled domestically, the fact is that most parts are sourced from other countries, suggesting that new tariffs are about to increase the cost significantly. IRA and related job losses. One of the problems that Ford, as well as other American automakers, has with the new tariffs is that they're coming at a time that we really can't call an ideal moment. Farley already warned that there's an ongoing street fight in the industry with the transition to electric vehicles and the rapid growth of Chinese automakers, and that now it's no time for disruption. President Trump has talked a lot about making our US auto industry stronger, bringing more production here, more innovation to the US, and if his administration could achieve that, it would be one of the most signature accomplishments, Farley said. But from what we've learned so far, new rules seem to have more negative effects than good ones. We can take the Inflation Reduction Act as an example. The new administration plans to roll back some of its parts, and according to Farley, these moves would jeopardize jobs at Ford and all other companies working on electric vehicle production, because new measures are about to slow down already discussable EV growth even more, which will force Ford to make further production cuts, to make even harder decisions compared to those from last year when Ford cut the workforce at the Dearborn plant significantly due to low EV demand. The problem is that, as Farley stated, American automakers have already sunk their capital into battery production and assembly plants, and now when big parts of the Inflation Reduction Act are about to get repealed, many of those jobs will be at risk. Little to no duties. If we are about to talk about negative consequences, the new tariff could easily put American automakers in an inferior position compared to Japanese and Korean companies. We already talked about American cars that are assembled in Mexico and Canada. Well, the thing is, Japanese and Korean automakers rather focused on establishing plants in the US and local suppliers. So it's no surprise that most Japanese and Korean cars are actually more American-made than those coming from Ford or GM. Not only that, as you may know, many of these automakers also import some of their products that are produced in Japan or Korea. For example, many Mazda models are assembled in Japan, not to mention luxury brands like Lexus. For them, the import duty is not particularly high, which allows them to form competitive prices and be as affordable as US assembled rivals. Even Farley singled out its key rivals, Toyota and Hyundai, pointing out that the two companies are importing hundreds of thousands of cars every year, with little to no duties compared to the 25% tariff that's soon to come into effect. The Korean automaker is in a particularly good position thanks to the Korea-US Free Trade Agreement, as South Korean-made vehicles enjoy a 0% tariff when entering the US market. But don't think that Trump isn't perfectly aware of the situation. As early as April, Trump plans to introduce additional tariffs on imported cars, and if this really happens, Farley's claims will no longer have foundation. Trump's also considering tariffs on countries with value-added tax systems used by Japan and South Korea, which can further increase import duties. Which Ford models will be affected the most by the new tariffs? As we've already established earlier in the video, the biggest problem companies like Ford have with new tariffs is that a lot of their production was moved to Canada and particularly Mexico long ago. So even though you're getting a Ford, that doesn't mean that you bought an American-made product. Moreover, some of Ford's models are actually among the least American cars around, and the problem is that they're pretty big profit generators. First, we can take a look at what's happening at the Hermosillo plant. There, Ford produces crossovers like the Escape and Bronco Sport, which are both decently popular. Still, the biggest problem is that in the very same plant, Ford also produces the Maverick, a super popular compact pickup that brings tons of money. With new tariffs, that won't be the case anymore, because recent data shows that 26% of its parts are sourced from the US and Canada. Its hybrid powertrain, for example, which is well known for impressive fuel efficiency, is produced in Mexico, just like many other parts, which indicates that the price is about to go up significantly once the new 25% tariff comes into effect. The F-150 may even be more problematic, because even though the Blue Oval likes to point out that unlike the Silverado and Ram 1500, all F-150 models are assembled in the US, primarily in Dearborn and Kansas plants, things are not all that simple. The truck may be assembled in America by American workers, but the thing is, most of these parts are imported. Approximately only 32% of the parts are US made, while the rest comes from various parts of the world, including Mexico and Canada. In other words, the F-150 is another model that's going to be affected heavily. Prices will have to go up, so it probably won't look like such an appealing proposal anymore. The only mitigating circumstance is that rivals like the Ram 1500 and Chevy Silverado 1500 are probably in an even worse position, considering that many of these are produced in Mexico. So the price increase caused by the new tariff could be even higher. So while we're still waiting to see when or will the new tariffs come into power, we presume that Ford officials are already working out different strategies. If these new tariffs really happen, the company will be at a crossroads, forced to decide whether to absorb costs or, which is more likely, pass them on to customers. Bold moves will be required, maybe even shifting production back to the US. In any case, it won't be an easy fix, so one way or another, Ford will have to find a way to adapt, and it'll have to do it fast to avoid an all-out crisis. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.